There is always light, if only we are brave enough to see it, if only we are brave enough to be it. సమకాలీన భారతీయ పాత్రికేయ రంగంలో సత్యమనే వెలుగును చూడగలిగే ధైర్యం, తానే ఆ వెలుగై సమాజానికి సత్యాసత్యాలను స్పష్టంగా చూపగల సత్తా, తెగువ గల పాత్రికేయులలో ఎన్నదగిన పేరు పరంజోయ్ గుహా ఠాకూర్తా. ఖచ్చితత్వం, స్వతంత్రత, నిష్పాక్షికత, మానవీయత, జవాబుదారీతనం లాంటి మౌలిక పాత్రికేయ విలువలు మూర్తీభవించిన ఠాకూర్తా బహుముఖ ప్రజ్ఞాశాలి కూడా. జర్నలిస్టు, రచయిత, వక్త, సంధానకర్త, టీచర్, వ్యాఖ్యాత, పబ్లిషర్, ప్రొడ్యూసర్, మ్యూజిషియన్, డైరెక్టర్ మరియు కన్సల్టెంట్గా ఎన్నో విభిన్న పాత్రలు పోషించిన ఠాకూర్తా తన మాతృభాష అయిన బెంగాలీ మరియు హిందీ, ఇంగ్లీషు భాషలలో ప్రింట్ మీడియా, వెబ్సైట్లు, రేడియో పాడ్కాస్ట్లు, టీవీ, మ్యూజిక్ వీడియోలు, డాక్యుమెంటరీలు లాంటి విభిన్న మాధ్యమాల ద్వారా తన గళాన్ని బలంగా వినిపించారు. 1955 అక్టోబర్ 5న కలకత్తాలో జన్మించిన ఠాకూర్తా లామార్టినియర్ ఫర్ బాయ్స్ స్కూల్లో పాఠశాల విద్యాభ్యాసం చేశారు. సెయింట్ స్టీఫెన్స్ కాలేజ్ నుంచి ఎకనామిక్స్లో BA, ఢిల్లీ స్కూల్ ఆఫ్ ఎకనామిక్స్ నుంచి MA పట్టాను పొందారు. చిన్నతనం నుంచి రెండవ ప్రపంచ యుద్ధం, గ్రేట్ బెంగాల్ ఫెమిన్, హిందూ ముస్లింల మత ఘర్షణల కథలు వింటూ పెరిగిన ఠాకూర్తాను ఎమర్జెన్సీ జర్నలిజం వైపు మొగ్గేలా ప్రేరేపించింది. 1977లో కలకత్తాలోని ఒక వార్తాపత్రికలో అసిస్టెంట్ ఎడిటర్గా మొదలైన ఆయన పాత్రికేయ ప్రస్థానం 4.5 దశాబ్దాలకు పైగా సాగింది. బిజినెస్ ఇండియా, బిజినెస్ వరల్డ్, ద టెలిగ్రాఫ్, ఇండియా టుడే, ద పయనీర్ లాంటి అనేక ప్రముఖ భారతీయ మీడియా ఆర్గనైజేషన్లలో ఠాకూర్తా పనిచేశారు. 1995 నుంచి 2001 వరకు CNBC ఇండియా టెలివిజన్లో 1400 ఎపిసోడ్లు నడిచిన ఇండియా టాక్స్ అనే చర్చా కార్యక్రమాన్ని నిర్వహించారు. ఠాకూర్తా దీనిని ఫుల్ టైమ్ ఇడియట్ ఆన్ ఇడియట్ బాక్స్ అని సరదాగా ఉదహరిస్తారు. భారతీయ మరియు ప్రపంచ రాజకీయ ఆర్థిక వ్యవస్థ పనిచేసే తీరు, మాస్ మీడియా ఈయన ప్రధాన కార్యక్షేత్రాలు. ఇంతవరకు ఈయన 8 పుస్తకాలు రచించారు, 30 పైగా పుస్తకాలు పబ్లిష్ చేశారు, 25 పైగా డాక్యుమెంటరీ ఫిల్మ్లు, వందల సంఖ్యలో లఘు చిత్రాలు, మ్యూజిక్ వీడియోలు నిర్మించారు. వీటి ద్వారా సహజ వనరుల కేటాయింపు మరియు ధర నిర్ణయం, క్రోనీ క్యాపిటలిజం, ఒలిగార్కీ మరియు భారతదేశంలో కమ్యూనికేషన్స్ వంటి అంశాలను ప్రధానంగా విశ్లేషిస్తారు. హాట్ యాజ్ హెల్, పోల్కర్స్, ఇడియట్ బాక్స్ ఆర్ విండో ఆఫ్ హోప్, చిల్డ్రన్ ఇన్ క్రాస్ ఫైర్ లాంటి డాక్యుమెంటరీలు, ధరతీ తుమ్హారీ లాంటి మ్యూజిక్ వీడియోలు, మీడియా ఎథిక్స్, గ్యాస్ వార్స్, స్యూ ద మెసెంజర్ లాంటి పుస్తకాలు బహుళ ప్రాచుర్యాన్ని పొందాయి. పరంజోయ్ ఠాకూర్తా గత పలు సంవత్సరాలుగా IIM అహ్మదాబాద్, IIM షిల్లాంగ్, IIM కల్కటాలలోనూ, ఢిల్లీ యూనివర్సిటీలోని డిపార్ట్మెంట్ ఆఫ్ పొలిటికల్ సైన్సెస్లోనూ అతిథి అధ్యాపకునిగా ఉన్నారు. 2008, 2011ల మధ్యన ప్రెస్ కౌన్సిల్ ఆఫ్ ఇండియాలో సభ్యునిగా పనిచేసి మరొక సభ్యునితో కలిసి పెయిడ్ న్యూస్, హౌ కరప్షన్ ఇన్ ద ఇండియన్ మీడియా అండర్మైన్స్ డెమోక్రసీ అన్న అంశంపై 36,000 పదాల 71 పేజీల రిపోర్టును రూపొందించారు. దేశ విదేశాల్లో విస్తృతంగా పర్యటించిన ఠాకూర్తా వివిధ భారతీయ, అంతర్జాతీయ సివిల్ సొసైటీ సంస్థలలో బోర్డు మెంబర్గా సేవలందించారు. వివిధ ప్రభుత్వ, ప్రైవేటు, NGO సంస్థలతోనూ, UN సంస్థలతోనూ కన్సల్టెంట్గా పనిచేశారు. 2023లో హిండెన్బర్గ్ రీసెర్చ్ అదానీ గ్రూప్ అవినీతిపై విడుదల చేసిన రిపోర్ట్లో ఉదహరింపబడిన ఏకైక భారతీయ పాత్రికేయుడిగాను, అదానీ గ్రూప్ తన విమర్శకులను అణగదొక్కాలని ఎంత ప్రయత్నించినప్పటికీ వెరవక ఆ రిపోర్టు గురించి రాసిన ధైర్యశాలిగాను ఠాకూర్తా ప్రశంసించబడ్డారు. ఆరోగ్యకరమైన ప్రజాస్వామ్యానికి ప్రెస్ ఫ్రీడమ్ అవసరమని భావించే ఠాకూర్తా సవాళ్లను లెక్కచేయక అవినీతిని, అన్యాయాన్ని ధిక్కరిస్తూ తన గళాన్ని గట్టిగా వినిపిస్తూనే ఉండడానికి కట్టుబడి ఉన్నారు. పరంజోయ్ గుహా ఠాకూర్తా భారతీయ సమాజాన్ని తన పని ద్వారా ఎంతగానో ప్రభావితం చేశారు. మానవ హక్కుల భంగం, అవినీతి, హిందుత్వ అతివాదం వంటి వాటిని బహిర్గతం చేశారు. సమాజానికి సత్యమనే వెలుగును చూపే సత్తా, ధైర్యం, తెగువ, విలువలో కలిగిన పాత్రికేయునిగా పరంజోయ్ గుహా ఠాకూర్తా పాత్రికేయ వృత్తి యొక్క స్థాయిని పెంచారనడం అతిశయోక్తి కాదు.
మనం పరంజయ్ని క్రోనీ క్యాపిటలిజం, ఆశ్రిత పెట్టుబడిదారీ విధానం మీద మాట్లాడమని అడిగాము. నౌ ఐ రిక్వెస్ట్ పరంజయ్ టు డెలివర్ హిస్ 4th రాఘవాచారి సెంటనరీ మెమోరియల్ లెక్చర్. ఈ ప్రసంగాన్ని ఆయన ఒక 15 నిమిషాలు మాట్లాడతారు. తర్వాత ప్రొఫెసర్ అంజిరెడ్డి గారు తెలుగులో దాని సారాంశం చెప్తారు. అట్లా దాదాపు ఒక గంట సేపు పరంజయ్ మాట్లాడతారు. ప్లీజ్.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Very good morning to you. It is my honor and my privilege to be present here on a Sunday morning at Vijayawada to deliver for you the 4th Raghavachari Memorial Lecture. I am truly grateful to all of you who are here, and I really do believe that such a wonderful reception that was given to me, I cannot think of any other I mean, I have been to different parts of India, I have been to different parts of the world, but nobody has made such a wonderful audio-visual presentation as you have. So I am truly flattered, truly honored, and as they would say in Bengali and Hindi, my mother tongue is Bengali, nojor lege jabe means nazar lag jayega logo ko. If you praise somebody too much, then that person becomes extremely arrogant, and after he becomes very arrogant, he becomes foolish. And therefore I'm going to tell you how our honorable Prime Minister is a bit like that. I don't want to be like him. You know, I'll start with something that has happened now, and then I will come to the topic of crony capitalism. What is capitalism? What is socialism? What do these words mean in today, in the world, and in India? But let's talk a little bit about something that happened very recently. As I am talking to you right now, there is a 75-year-old plus Prabir Purakayastha who is in police custody in Delhi. He's more than me in terms of age. He's over 75 years old. I'm 68 years old. He has been judicial custody, police custody, from the morning of the 3rd of October. Another person with him, Amit Chakravarti, he is physically challenged. He was afflicted with polio in his childhood, and he has to wear calipers on his feet. He walks with a crutch. He too has been in judicial custody and police custody from the morning of the 3rd. A lot of people, and here there was a mention of it in the video, why I became a journalist. My last 2 years at the University of Delhi more or less coincided with the Indira Gandhi's emergency. But what we are today seeing is something very different, and I would say something worse. Yes, during the emergency, several journalists, the political opponents of the government, of Indira Gandhi's government, they were put behind bars. Large numbers of them. The first difference was that the emergency lasted for approximately 19 months, because after that the people were released from prison, and though the elections were held after 21 months, the really most authoritarian phase was between June 1975 and January 19 77. By that time, Jayaprakash Narayan, others, the left and the right had come together, and it was a turning point in India's history. Even today, people speculate, why did Indira Gandhi call for elections? And even today, people cannot answer this question as to why the southern part of India voted for her and the northern part of India rejected her. These are questions to which political scientists, scholars, analysts are debating, and even today continue to debate. Be that as it may, there are some things that are happening today which is unprecedented. Yes, Indira Gandhi put many journalists behind bars, throttled their voice, shut did not let them speak. Newspapers, that time television was not there, or it was just there. It was completely, it had begun, television had begun, radio had there, but it was all government controlled. But the newspapers, they even printed blank spaces on the pages, on the front page and other pages, because they were censored. And that was the first time the people of this country realized, what does freedom of expression mean? Abhivekti ka swatantrata. It is a fundamental right, it's a maulik adhikar of every citizen. The journalists derive their freedom from this article, Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution of India. And there is also Article 19(2) of the Constitution of India, which imposes what are supposed to be reasonable restrictions on the right to free speech. The problem is this word reasonable. Yuktigat. Juktigatu. Who decides what is reasonable? Is it the local policeman or the Inspector General of Police? Is it the gunda, the mafia don? Is it the political leader? Is it the magistrate in the lower court? Or is it the Chief Justice of India? Who decides? This is a big problem. And if any of you are interested, I can discuss this in greater detail. But let's come to what has happened now. NewsClick was established by Prabir Purakasta a little more than 10 years ago. I have been a consultant with them, not an employee, not a director, not an owner, not a shareholder, not a member of the editorial board. I'm a consultant, I'm a contributor. There are several people like me. At one stage, there were over 100 people who were working regularly for NewsClick. The allegations against Prabir Purakasta, I'll come to a little later. But what happened? Something happened on the morning of the 3rd of October, which has never ever happened in the history of India. That morning, at around 3 o'clock in the morning, over 300 police persons, men and women, were called to the special cell of the Delhi police. And they were briefed, and in a coordinated manner, at 6:30 in the morning, they arrived at the homes of 80 people, or roughly 80 people, or more than 80 people, in Delhi, the national capital region of Delhi. There was also in Mumbai, there was also in Hyderabad, later in Kerala. In Indira Gandhi's time, we used to talk about the midnight knock. This was the morning alarm. At 6:30, imagine, in my home, 10 police personnel came. Nine police personnel came. Then, same set of questions I later learned they had asked everybody. What is your association with NewsClick? How much money do you earn? What is your bank account details? Did you cover the Delhi riots, the Hindu-Muslim riots in early 2020? Then many people, not me, many people who are asked about the COVID, the management or the mismanagement of the COVID, the anti-COVID program of the government of India. They asked me about the farmers' agitation. I said, yes, I have covered the farmers' agitation. It's a unique agitation. So, same set of questions were asked to everybody. Almost everybody. Many of the people who were visited by the police, they were not directly associated with NewsClick. They were friends of Prabir Prakashta, old friends. Then they started asking me, do you use Signal, which is an app, an application with high security? I said, yes. Then they wanted to make a point to me. Who is this person in Hong Kong you spoke with? So I said, this person in Hong Kong is an author, and he was coming to India, and I interviewed him for NewsClick. Then he said, who is this person in Australia you have been speaking with? They could not pronounce his name properly. I pronounced it for them. Jeff, Geoff. So he said, why have you been speaking with him? I said, he runs a website called Adani Watch. And I'm a regular contributor to Adani Watch. Have I done anything illegal? मैं गैर कानूनी काम कुछ किया? I raise an invoice, the money comes into my bank account. Please check my bank account. Income Tax Department can check my bank account. Enforcement Directorate can check my bank account. In the same way as every single paisa, rupee that I have taken from NewsClick are all accounted for. I raise the invoice, they cut the tax at source, and then the money goes into my bank account. It is not as if I am doing some shady dealing, somebody is coming to me with some bundles of cash or something like that. Black money. Then, at my home itself, they asked me, we want your phone and your laptop. So I said, give it to me in writing. I spoke to a lawyer friend. He says, this is the toughest, the most dangerous, the most draconian law in India's statute books. UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Then, earlier, against Prabir Prakashta, against NewsClick, the Enforcement Directorate had acted on. They sealed the office, they kept him in his home for 5 days, they kept him and his partner, his wife, 5 days. They didn't let him go out of the home. Income Tax Department came. The Enforcement Directorate supposed to be enforcing 2 laws, FEMA, the Foreign Exchange Management Act, and PMLA, the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Then there was another FIR, a first information report, that was lodged by the Economic Offences Wing of the Delhi Police. I'll come to these, I'll elaborate on these. Why did they choose the most draconian of all laws, where it's almost next to impossible to get bail? Look at the people who have been accused in the Bhima Koregaon case. So eventually, in my case, because I said I want it in writing, you have a seizure memo, give it to me in writing that you want my phone. Even today as we talk, not my phone, they return my phone. 80, at least 80 telephones, laptops, hard drives, pen drives. In some cases, people's passport. So in some cases, somebody's checkbook, somebody else's documents, property documents, they all are with the Delhi police. This is a way of snatching the livelihood of journalists. And they are young people. Some of them are very young people, 20s. They were so scared. They were shocked. They never imagined that at 6:30 in the morning, suddenly so many police persons will come to my home. Well, and by the way, later we learned that the FIR, the first information report, was lodged 1.5 months earlier. Nobody knew about it. What are the charges? That Mr. Prabir Purakasta has received money from an American entity which is supposed to be investments, but they are saying it's like a grant. And the person who has given this money, or rather his companies, his trusts, Neville Roy Singham, he is close to the Communist Party. So he is like a propagandist of the Chinese Communist Party. Now, there was a long report in the New York Times which appeared in August, which pointed all these things out. But nowhere has it been written that any law has been violated, any law has been contravened. In America, okay, I don't like you, you are supporting the Chinese, so what? Have I violated any law? Now you are suggesting that here is a person who is close to the Communist Party. You're not saying it openly, but you're saying money is coming from China to America and then coming to India. It's truly astounding. They are saying that a group of people are trying to tinker with the map of India. They want to make a new map of India. Arunachal will be somewhere else. Jammu and Kashmir will be somewhere else. I mean, come on. They are saying here is a group of left-wingers, PADS, and they are trying to influence the elections. You call yourself the mother of all democracy. We are the world's largest democracy. Next year, about 1 billion people will be eligible to vote. And you are seeing a group of people are able to manipulate the elections. So I personally believe these allegations will not stand up to judicial scrutiny, but time alone will tell whether this is true or not. I'll take a break and ask him to speak, but before that I'll relate to you 2 small anecdotes. As I told you, I was one of the lucky people. They returned my phone the same day. They came to my home at 6:30 a.m. At 8:30, I went with them to the Delhi office of the special cell. I was there, one inspector, another inspector, sub-inspector, another inspector, assistant commissioner of police, deputy commissioner of police, DIG, all asked me all kinds of questions. Same question. Sometimes the same question is asked over and over again. Then, to my surprise, they gave my phone, everything. Before they took my phone, they asked me to relate the, I said, I want a hash value. So I want to know that you have not planted anything into my phone. They said, no, we are doing it in front of you. Why are you worried? All these kinds of things. As I was coming out, I was mobbed. There were about 25, 30 camera persons, journalists, all asking me, what happened? What happened? What happened? So I spoke first in English and then in Hindi. There was one woman journalist, I could see from the mic ID that she was from Republic Television. She asked me, what did they ask you about NewsClick? So I said, you're from Republic Television. Once upon a time, Arnab Goswami used to be a journalist. Today, he's become a monstrous caricature of what a journalist should be. Bibhatsya, Rakshas ho gaya wo. He said, you're not answering my question. So I said, your name? He said, Simran. I said, pleased to meet you, Simran. You called me up a few days back. You recorded my conversation without telling me, then you put it up on air. He said, what did they ask you about NewsClick? So I repeated it. Arnab Goswami used to be a journalist. Today he's a monstrous caricature. She realized it was not worth asking any more questions to me. As I was leaving, ANI, Asia News International, and PTI, Press Trust of India, they had 2 microphones thrust in my face. I don't know what happened. Something happened in my head. Spending 12 hours with the police, I think something happened to me. So I took the mic from ANI and I said, before you ask me a question, let me give you the answer. आप सवाल मत उठाइए, आपका जवाब मिल जाएगा. So I took the mic and I said, Modi ji महान है. Modi ji भगवान का अवतार है. Modi ji is great. Modi ji is God's avatar. And then I left. I never realized that this few seconds of what I said would go viral. So I'll take a short break. He will summarize what I've said in Telugu. And then after that, I'll come to some more serious issues. Crony capitalism and socialism. I will now speak a little bit about the subject. What is crony capitalism? And then I will talk about one group which has come to symbolize and epitomize crony capitalism in India, and that is Adani Group. But first, let's look at it from a bigger perspective and theoretical perspective. Many centuries ago, when Karl Marx talked about capitalism, socialism, means of production, superstructure, infrastructure, talked about dialectical materialism. That was many, many years ago. That was centuries ago, in fact. He talked about various things, including the unity of opposites. That this is what Hegel also had talked, dialectical idealism. That there will be a unity of opposite. Thesis, synthesis, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. It is there in many, many philosophies across the world, including concepts of yin and yang. Then he talked about, after the unity of opposites, he talked about qualitative change leading to quantitative change. You know, so he first said society is always in a state of flux. Then he talked about unity and opposites. Then he talked about qualitative change leading to quantitative change. So what Hegel has said, Marx sort of translated from the realm of ideas to the realm of the material world. Be that as it may, I come to where are we today. What do these words mean? Capitalism, socialism. Is China a communist country? Is it a capitalist country? Take countries in what they call the Nordic countries, Scandinavian countries, Norway, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, Iceland. The government in these countries spends a lot of money as a proportion of the national income or the GDP on welfare programs, education, healthcare, bijli, sarak, pani, electricity, water, roads. But many of these countries have different points of time, haven't called themselves socialist, but consistently they spent. Some of them have called themselves social democrat. So what the point I'm making is these words mean different things at different points of time. Take the United States of America, supposedly the bastion of capitalism, free enterprise capitalism. 15 years ago, when there was an international crisis, अंतर्राष्ट्रीय एक विश्वव्यापी एक आर्थिक संकट का समय, Wall Street melted down. The companies which built the railroads in the US, Lehman Brothers, they collapsed. This is the loan crisis. Another famous company, General Motors. There was a period of time when the American government was the majority shareholder in General Motors. So the question is, was General Motors a private company or a public company? Private or private? Take India. Our first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, said India should have a mixed economy. Misrit Artha Vyavastha. Many can argue that today, what Nehru wanted, that we take the best of capitalism and we take the best of socialism. Nehru was very close to the erstwhile Soviet Union. He who propaganded the whole concept, he was among others, Joseph Broz Tito, Nasser, who talked about non-alignment. Today, India has not voted for peace in Gaza. Can you imagine? It has gone against in the international trend, and we haven't voted. But he wanted India to take the best of capitalism and the best of socialism. It's a separate matter than the communists were very critical of Nehru. Remember, the communists were the biggest opposition party at that particular point of time, in the 50s. Remember, even before the first general elections in 51, 52, Nehru put his own political opponents as part of his cabinet. Remember Ambedkar, who was so critical of Nehru. Nehru gave him the task to put together, he's considered the architect of the Constitution. I'm making all these points, they are apparently disconnected, but you could argue. I had a discussion with a very great man, Professor Amartya Sen, Nobel laureate. And I said, instead of the best of both worlds, did India get the worst of both worlds? Say, take healthcare, education, infrastructure, social infrastructure. And he said that, look, you look at Russia, then it was Soviet Union, undivided Soviet Union. Take China, take small countries, Vietnam, Cuba. They have all done better than India in providing healthcare and education to its people. We failed. They call themselves communist, socialist. They did better, but we didn't. Even today, our record in providing healthcare and education to our people has not been good. It has been very bad. We haven't had a census from 2011 for the first time in the history of this country. In 2021, because of COVID, we didn't have a census, Jan Ganana. Now, 2 years down the line, why haven't we had it? That's another question. The point is, you cannot develop as a society, the world over we have seen, unless you provide good quality education and health care to the people. Now let's look at it from the point of view of the right wing. We are supposed to have taken the worst of capitalism. Capitalism says there should be free enterprise, there should be open competition. Instead, we had license, control, Raj. Famous statement made by one of Nehru's critics, Rajagopalachari. And the argument was that till 2021, till 2001, I stand corrected, economic liberalization, reforms, arthik udarikaran, we strangled the spirit of enterprise in people. And so they did not, the middle classes and those who had money to invest, to create jobs, we failed to do that. So we took the worst of capitalism and we took the worst of socialism. But wait, what was public sector and private sector all about? Say, take this whole notion of private sector. Before 1991, the shares or the bulk of the investments that had been made in private limited companies, including groups or corporate entities set up by the Tatas, the Birlas, the bulk of the money came from the government. Public sector banks, nationalized banks, financial institutions, they provided the money. This is true even in America. This is true in Japan. This is true in South Korea. So, if in a company only 8% or 12% of the shares are held by the original promoters and the rest is held by others, including the government body, is it a private company or a public company? This is a basic, simple question I'm asking. Because what happened after that, we saw that these companies, there were takeovers. Swaraj Paul tried to take over escorts, tried to take over DCM, Delhi Cloth Mills. He failed. Why? Because Rajiv Gandhi's government, before that Indira Gandhi's government, went with the public sector. So, what was private about our private sector? Now let's look at it the other way around. What was public about the public sector? The public sector, all the big corporations, ONGC, Indian Oil Corporation, Bharat Heavy Electricals, they were run as if they were the personal jagirdar or the zamindaris. We have Professor Zamindar here. But they were run as if they were the personal fiefdoms of the netas and the babus, the political leaders and the civil servants and the bureaucrats. So the question that came is that, are these truly acting in the interest of the public? Or the public itself, or the public sector, has become like the private property of a few people? And interestingly, left and right often agreed on this limited point. Now, given this kind of a theoretical background, what is the difference between crony capitalism and capitalism? Pujivad. Capitalism, you're supposed to have a level playing field. People are supposed to have the freedom to compete with each other. Pratidvandita. The ability to compete against one another. Now what has happened in India, at least, the playing field has not been level. So this is capitalism for the cronies. Who are the cronies? They are the friends of those who are in power. They are relatives. They are selected people who are their supporters. This is not true capitalism also. We have moved beyond crony capitalism, where we have moved to what is called an oligarchy. In an oligarchy, there's no difference between those who lead the government and the business enterprise. And I'm going to elaborate on this point in greater detail by giving you the example of Gautam Adani. Day before yesterday, there was an article in the Indian Express which talked about how 40 40% of the cargo that is being handled in India is being handled by ports which are controlled by Adani. What does this mean for our economy? Because we have moved even beyond crony capitalism to a kind of privatization that was unbelievable. And the example is Mr. Gautam Adani. I am honored and I am privileged that I am the only citizen of India against whom Mr. Gautam Adani's lawyers currently have 6 defamation cases that are pending in different courts of law. Manhani. 5 are in Gujarat, 1 in Rajasthan. And as has been already mentioned, I'm the only journalist from India whose name features in the Hindenburg Research Report, which came out on the 21st January. I'll continue and tell you the story of Gautam Adani in the next part. Thank you for the translation. I'm able to understand Telugu, but I can't speak it. And thank you to that young man, Comrade Raghavachari's grandson, for giving me the strepsil cough lozenges. Today I'm going to talk, next section, this talk will be in 4 sections. So the third section, this one, will talk about a man called Gautam Adani. He's a little younger than me. He's 68. I'm 68. He's, I think, 63 or 64. Mr. Modi is also older than us. He's, I think, 73 or so. 25 years ago, or 20 years ago, nobody had heard about Gautam Adani. What happened? What is so unique about this particular person? Let's go back in time. When the country was on gaining political independence, there were several people who were called Swadeshi nationalist industrialists. There were Swadeshi capitalists, there were Swadeshi industrialists, Birlas, Tatas. At one level, in order to do business, they had to deal with the British. But at another level, they were helping Gandhiji. And they were helping all the people who were against the British. In fact, if some of you are interested, if you go back in time and go through what Gandhiji himself said, why he stayed at the home of Ghanshyam Das Birla in Delhi, which is today called, it's like a memorial. It is on the road which is called 30 January Marg, because on the 30th of January of 1948, Nathuram Godse assassinated him over there. So Gandhi had I would say, mixed association with the capitalists. He needed their money. He was also opposed to what Nehru thought of in terms of, ideologically, in terms of how the industrial sector should grow in India. They had a lot of differences. Nehru wanted these big industries, and Gandhiji wanted small-scale industries, wanted each village to be self-sufficient. But let's move on. Dhirubhai Ambani, his uniqueness was that he rose very fast, and thanks to the patronage of Indira Gandhi. Remember, I'm going back to the emergency. After the emergency, everybody shunned Indira Gandhi. She was almost like Achut, a pariah. One person stood by her, and that was Dhirubhai Ambani. So in January 1980, when Indira Gandhi returned to power, after the Janta government, the two Janta government, one headed by Morarji Desai, the other headed by Charan Singh, they collapsed. He then never looked back. From being a petrol station attendant in Aden, he became India's richest man. Now, how are all these people different from Mr. Gautam Adani? Gautam Adani, 25 years ago, nobody knew him. He was one more diamond trader in Mumbai's Jhaveri Bazaar. His family had a small factory in Gujarat. They were making these plastic products. And then, by 2024, barely 2 decades later, Mr. Gautam Adani had not just become India's richest man, had become the world's second richest man, and the second richest man, and the third richest man. By which time he had spread his tentacles over India's infrastructure sector. He is India's biggest coal miner, Koila Khanan. There's only one organization that is bigger, and that is the world's biggest coal miner, and that is Coal India Limited. He's India's biggest importer of coal. He has mines in Indonesia. He is India's biggest, his group, his conglomerate. When I say, I'm using Adani, but when I say Adani, I mean Adani Group, the Adani conglomerate, which have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies. One estimate says that across the world he may have about 1,000 companies or 12,000 corporate entities. Now, electricity generation, he's the biggest after NTPC, the National Thermal Power Corporation. He's the biggest in the transmission of electricity, distribution of electricity. And in order to allay the apprehension that he's a big supporter of coal, and therefore he's contributing to climate change, he has got very big into solar energy and wind energy. He's the biggest in India. Dozens of them all over the country, including in your state. Doesn't stop there. Then they go into seaports. This Indian Express article will tell you every 500 kilometers, that is from the west coast to the east coast, Mr. Adani is running a port. You've heard of China, they call it the string of jewels. They control ports from Ethiopia and the Horn of Africa all the way to the South China Sea. This is Mr. Adani's string of jewels. 18 ports, including ports that are in states that are not ruled by BJP, notably Kerala, Vilnam port. He is the biggest operator of airports. He had no experience. He had zero experience. But the rules were changed. And today he's running Ahmedabad, Lucknow, Guwahati, Thiruvananthapuram, Mangalore, Jaipur, and even Mumbai, the second biggest port. Where the GVK group, it's another story how they had to give up their control over Mumbai airport, the second biggest airport in India. That's not all. Grain storage. The farmers' agitation was also against Ambani and Adani. He is the biggest provider of storage facilities, bulk storage facilities, after the Food Corporation of India. These big silos where you store wheat and rice. I mean, It is sourced from Punjab and Western UP and Haryana, but it reaches everywhere, all over India. His ports, by the way, I forgot to mention, his ports are not only in India. They're in Australia, they're in Indonesia, and they're in Israel. He operates Haifa, second largest port in Israel. And you know, of course, Mr. Narendra Modi was the first Prime Minister of India to visit Israel, and he had a lot of pictures taken with him with Benjamin Netanyahu, who many people are today arguing are committing genocide on the on Palestinians in the name that they're all supposed to be supporters of Hamas. As we are talking here now, innocent people, men, women, elderly people, children, they're being killed as we are talking. To return to Mr. Adani, roads, railway tracks, barges, you name it, defense equipment, drones, they're called UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, data storage, buildings, real estate. That's not all. That's not all. The apples you eat. Who is the biggest supplier of apples in India? Mr. Adani's group. Who is the biggest supplier of edible oils? The food which you use to cook your food, to fry your food, your puris and your pakoras and everything. Fortune brand, #1 in India. About 1/5, more than 1/5 of the total market for edible oils. And that is Mr. Adani's company. Mr. Adani has been involved in many scandals. There was a stock market scandal led by Ketan Parekh. His name is there in the reports. Mr. N. Santosh Hegde, the Lok Ayukta of Karnataka, named Adani in a report he published about the illegal iron ore mining in Ballari and Anantapur, spearheaded by Gali Janardhan Reddy and various other people. Gali Janardhan Reddy had to go behind bars, just like your Honorable Chief Minister also spent some time behind bars. 16 months, 18 months, 19 months. I'm not sure, I wasn't sure. Then, in that report by Justice Santosh Hegde, you will find the name of Adani. Now there are a series of reports against him by the DRI, the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence, which is a wing of the Ministry of Finance, Customs Department, Customs Intelligence. What are they saying? Essentially, you are purchasing, say, equipment from China, power generating equipment, or you're buying coal from Indonesia. That coal or that the equipment, before it comes to India, it goes to another place, to another place, to a third place. And finally, by the time it comes to India, the price has shot up. In some cases, it's doubled. In some cases, it's gone up 5 times. It's called over-invoicing. And what happens? Where does this money go? It goes to these tax havens like Mauritius, Cyprus, and comes back to India to rig the shares. These are the allegations. No, not by me, by a wing of the Ministry of Finance. The Supreme Court is seized of the matter. What will happen, I don't know. SEBI, the Securities and Exchange Board of India, is looking into this. Various journalistic organizations, the Guardian, the Financial Times, the OCCRP, the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, have all reported on this. But is the government taking any action? Will the government take any action? I don't have the answer to the question. Please remember that Mr. Adani's projects are all over India, including in states which are not ruled by the BJP. States like Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, West Bengal, Kerala, etc., Tamil Nadu. Though I consider, tell me if I'm wrong, I consider Andhra Pradesh to be a state whose chief minister is closely aligned with the Bharatiya Janata Party. I can be fair in saying that. And interestingly, I think the opposition is also now gone to his side. Be that as it may, never before in India have we seen one industrialist so closely identified with the most powerful man in India. In our case, the Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, and the second most powerful man in India, the Home Minister of India, Shri Amit Shah. Yeah. By the way, the Delhi police comes under Mr. Amit Shah. But I suppose you already know that. As I told you earlier, I lost my job as the editor of the Economic and Political Weekly in July 2017 because of an article that appeared which was about the Adani Group. That's a long story, and today is maybe not the right occasion to tell you the story in detail. But as we are talking, these cases are pending. In 3 of these cases, Prabir Purakasta is involved because NewsClick is the publisher. In one of these cases, Prabir, others, me, we traveled to a place which was about halfway between Delhi and Mumbai, near Kota, because we were summoned there, criminal defamation. In India, manhani is a criminal case as well as a civil case. So we had to appear before the law. It was in a village adalat or court. The lady said, 10,000 rupees, bail bond, person has to stand as surety. And we were there. Aropi hazir hai. I said, haan, Aropi hazir hai. The accused is present. So we have to travel there to be there. This is the way they operate. They have other cases now against a person from Kerala who has been part of the OCCRP project, Ravi Nair. The police want him for investigation. The point I want to make, I think none of these cases will stand to judicial scrutiny. But the idea is to harass. In January 2021, just before NewsClick was raided by the Enforcement Directorate, I was issued a non-bailable warrant of arrest, NBW, Bina Zamanat Ka Arrest Warrant. The interesting thing about it, it reached the journalists, the Press Trust of India, before it reached my own lawyer. What was the allegation? That I have not appeared in court. This was the COVID period. First wave, second wave, January 2021. I appeared in court. I have appeared in that gentleman's court 3 times, first-class judicial magistrate. But what I could not say, or what I cannot say, you've seen what is happening to the Trinamool Congress MP, Mahua Moitro. Please see the interview that she gave to Rajdeep Sardesai night before last. Why she's a woman and how she has been attacked. She's a very, very vocal, vociferous critic of both Mr. Modi and Adani. You're seeing what has happened to her. I want to conclude this section of my speech by saying something which I can't say. But when it is said by the Chief Minister of Delhi in the floor of the assembly, the Vidhan Sabha, you can't do anything, no? He's protected. He has immunity from protection, including manhani, defamation. So I'll quote a few sentences from what Arvind Kejriwal said on the floor of the Vidhan Sabha in Delhi a few months back. He had later said something like, this country deserves a prime minister who's not fourth class pass. He never named anybody, but you know who he's talking about. But he said something interesting. He said it in Hindi. ये तो अडानी जी का पैसा नहीं है, ये तो मोदी जी का पैसा है. ये कंपनी तो अडानी जी का नहीं है, ये तो मोदी जी का कंपनी है. He said that this money doesn't belong to Adani, it belongs to Mr. Modi. This company does not belong to Mr. Adani, it belongs to Mr. Modi. I'm going to give you the fourth and the last part of my speech by telling you about the media. How the media is responsible for where we are today. But before that, I'll pass it on to you. This is the fourth and the final part of my presentation. I will try and entertain you a little bit, like I entertained you in the beginning. I can't, contrary to what has been given in the presentation, I'm not a musician. I can't sing. I try to sing when I'm having a bath. Only my mother thought I could sing, nobody else. My wife says, don't sing, I can sing better than you. I'll try and nevertheless entertain you. But you look at what has happened to the media. Look at what's happening in your state. How did Adani get control on Gangavaram port? How did Adani get control over Krishnapatnam port? How did Adani get control over Mumbai airport? You'll see a certain pattern. Before the takeover happens, you will find Enforcement Directorate has entered the picture. SFIO, Serious Fraud Investigation Office, Income Tax Department, Central Bureau of Investigation, all the people, all the organizations from where Adani took over. Before that, there were raids on them. I forgot to mention something which slipped my mind. Overnight, Adani Group became India's second largest cement producer. By acquiring the assets of Holcim, which is a Swiss multinational corporation, which included the assets of what was called ACC, Associated Cement Companies. Once upon a time it was part of the Tata Group, and also Ambuja Cements. So it is number 2 after the Birla Group, Ultratech Group. I forgot these points, so I'm renewing it. But why do we not see so much of the coverage in your media? When the opposition and the leaders of the Communist Party in the state assembly, they said this is not Andhra Pradesh, it is Adani Pradesh. How many papers are reporting it? How many news channels are putting out programs? Why? Because the media today, more than ever before, since the emergency, have become chamchas. They are subservient to those who are in power, positions of power and authority. What is the job of a journalist? To ask questions, to ask difficult questions. Those who are in power, they have to be held accountable. Otherwise, they will abuse their power. They will abuse the discretionary powers. In a democracy, you call yourself a democracy, call yourself the world's largest democracy, the mother of all democracies, call yourself whatever you like. But if you do not have a free and an independent media, then can you have democracy? If there is, I believe, it's good for the leader. that democracy, in a democracy, it's good for the leader if the media has the role of an antagonist. Protagonist, antagonist. Why? The government knows then what is happening. There is corruption over here. There is inefficiency over there. I believe it helps governance. It improves the quality of governance. But that's not happening in India. What we are seeing is that media organizations are only singing praises of the government. And not only are they not criticizing the people who are in power, they are doing the reverse. They are criticizing the opposition. So their job is not to hold truth to power, but to attack the opposition. The media, or a large section of media, is more concerned about attacking Rahul Gandhi and Arvind Kejriwal and Mamata Banerjee and Nitish Kumar and Lalu Yadav and Akhilesh Yadav and Siddhartha and everybody who is critical of the government is being attacked, like Mahua Moitro. Very few people are left who are playing the role that a journalist is expected to play in a free media. And look what's happened to them. Look what happened to NewsClick. The Enforcement Directorate visited the offices of News Laundry. And they've taken action against the founder editors of The Wire. After many months, the court has ruled that please return those personal electronic devices, the mobile phones, the laptops, the hard drives, the hard disk back. It was all with the Delhi police. Let me tell you, I'll entertain you a little bit. There are dogs and there are dogs. There are journalists and there are journalists. Some people say journalists are supposed to be the watchdogs of society. So when the thief has entered your house at 3 o'clock in the morning and everybody is fast asleep, the dog starts barking, bhaukna shuru kar deta hai. The thief is scared, runs away. The thief doesn't know that this is an old dog. It can only bark, it cannot bite. Koi baat nahi. It's done its job. Then there are the lap dogs. Ravish Kumar's favorite statement. Godi. Godi is the lap dogs. You can stroke the dog will wag its tail, it will not bark, forget biting, especially if the lap is belonging to a powerful politician, a powerful corporate captain, a mafia don, somebody like that. There are, of course, other kinds of dogs. We call them guide dogs. Like in Switzerland, you had the Saint Bernards. A person who's caught in a snow blizzard, the dog goes and saves that person. There are dogs that help a visually challenged person. There are dogs that sniff out drugs and explosives from a pile of luggage. So there are dogs and there are dogs. There are journalists and there are journalists. So unfortunately today, in journalism in India, and this is a consequence of crony capitalism, there are more lapdogs than watchdogs or guide dogs, unfortunately. I've been a journalist for 46 years, and I say this with deep sadness. He who pays the piper calls the tune. जो बांसुरी बजा रहे हैं, जो पैसा देता है ना, तो बोलेगा ये गाना बजाओ, वो गाना बजाओ, 1, 2, 3 बजाओ, राग नहीं सुनेंगे हम. So the government has bought up the media through advertisements. One part of the story, not the entire story. Those who, all those who are in power, they are not tolerant. उसके अंदर वो हिंदी में कहते हैं सहनशीलता नहीं है, but बदला लेने का मनसा है. That means you are not tolerant towards your critics, but you want to take revenge against the critics. And who are they being helped by? The crony capitalists of the world. I'll give you two examples. Two of the biggest corporate conglomerates in the planet as we speak are multinational corporations based in the United States of America. One is called Alphabet, the other is called Meta. Alphabet includes Google, everything, your search engine. It's become like Xerox. Are you want to know when Jagan Reddy was born? Google karo na. You want to know if Jagan Reddy was in jail for 16 months or 19 months? Google karo. But Alphabet is not just about Google, which gives you location services, search services, email services. It's also about Google owns YouTube. So what you watch is part of a company that is controlled by Google, or Alphabet as it's called, the holding company. That's not all. In most people who are using their phones, and today a phone has become a part of a human being's body, most of the phones are using the Android operating system. Only a small proportion uses Apple. So you see, we are all addicted to the phone. You tell your son, don't look at your phone for one day. He says, I'll go crazy. What will I do one day? Young man, what will you do for one day? Listen to music, read a book, go for a walk, go for a swim, go do anything. Don't look at your mobile. They are having withdrawal symptoms. It is the biggest addiction. You know, the alcoholic, every evening if he does not have his whiskey, his hands are shaking. The young people are like that. If they don't look at their mobile phone every few minutes, their hands are shaking. What am I missing out? This WhatsApp message. Take another corporation. Both of them are headed by young people in their 40s. That is Meta. Meta includes Facebook. Meta includes WhatsApp. India is the biggest user of WhatsApp. Over 50 crore, over 500 million, close to 600 million people in India are using WhatsApp. Not to mention Instagram. This is the way the media has changed you, changed your lives, and contributed to crony capitalism. Please understand, this is all linked. Those who are interested in the subject, I will strongly recommend that you read a book which is written by a scholar from the United States. Her name is Shoshana Zuboff. The name of the book is called Surveillance Capitalism. And the subtitle is very important. It is called The Fight for a Human Future at the New Frontiers of Power. This is what capitalism has today become. This is what crony capitalism has become. Look, when this country became politically independent, very few people had phones. I can show you a video clip if you want to see, but I'll leave that for another day. When I was a young person, we had phones, and it was a rare thing. We used to dial a number. Today's young people have never dialed. They click the numbers. वो dial का भी इस्तेमाल नहीं किया. Do you know that in most parts of India, there are more SIMs, S-I-M, SIMs, subscriber identity modules, than human beings. We have 140 crore Indians. We are the most populous country in the world. We have more people here than in China. And according to the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, TRAI, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, there was something like 115 to 120 crore SIMs. So there are many duplicate SIMs, there are many people with two phones, there are many people without SIMs, including infants. But in most parts of India, it's not just urban areas, not just Vijayawada or Hyderabad or Vizag. No, small towns, villages, there are more SIMs than human beings. This is what life has changed. This is why I am again quoting Ravish Kumar, who said there is an entire generation of Indians who are growing up on WhatsApp University, WhatsApp Vishwavidyalaya. 8 years ago, one young nephew of mine, he came to me, he calls me Mosaji, and he said, you know, not all Muslims are terrorists, but all terrorists are Muslim. I said, really? How did you know? WhatsApp. WhatsApp is spreading poison. They have poisoned the minds of an entire generation. We know half the population of India have voted for the Bharatiya Janata Party. Half the Hindus of India, roughly 40%. Roughly. That's entering the realm of politics. Why is this so? Why is this so? I conclude my presentation by telling you why. The most powerful man in India, the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Damodar Das Modi, is the first and the only Prime Minister of India who has never, ever addressed a media conference, an unscripted, spontaneous press conference. Say, all of you are journalists, you can ask me any questions. Whether I answer you or not is a separate matter. In 2019, after he won the Lok Sabha elections, many questions were asked of him in the Bharatiya Janata Party headquarters. But Amit Shah took all the questions. He answered all the questions, not Mr. Modi. Mr. Modi picks and chooses journalists who he wants to give interviews to. There are some who are ideologically aligned to him, like Rajat Sharma of India TV. There are several others. Navika Kumar, Rahul Shiv Shankar, RSS. Yes, Rahul Shiv Shankar. Anjana Om Kashyap, Sudhir Chaudhary, who spent a few weeks in jail. Many others, Deepak Chaurasya, who allegedly had drunk a little too much before he went on air. And above all is Mr. one and only Mr. Arnab Goswami. He picks and chooses. Now, he also picks and chooses non-journalists to whom he can give interviews. Among them, people like Prasoon Joshi, who's an advertising professional. He asks him, Mr. Modi, you work so hard, when do you sleep? And there was a very famous actor. He used to be a citizen of Canada. His name is Akshay Kumar. He also got the opportunity to interview our Honorable Prime Minister. And he asked him a very important question. He said, Modi ji, aap aam kaise khate hain? Modi ji, how do you eat your mango? Do you cut it from the top and suck on it, or do you cut the whole thing from beginning to end? If these are the people Mr. Modi wants to be interviewed by, you can imagine why the media has today become an integral part of the crony capitalist structure of India, and why it is in the forefront of spreading Islamophobia and why it is today not doing its duty as the fourth estate. And this, I believe, has never happened in India before. So thank you very, very much for giving this opportunity to speak with you in great detail on 4 subjects. And I'll be happy to answer your questions. Should you have any questions to ask of me, I'll ask him to